Hey, night owls. I'm tired. I wish I didn't have to tell you about the war tonight, and I bet you probably wish I didn't either. But there are important things to know that have happened today. There are important perspectives to consider and to watch. And there's one or two stories to look at that show the consequences of how war can spread, even when the fighting remains contained to the theater of the Middle East. So, what do we know about today? Right. Well, Israel and the US continued to hit Tehran, continued to hit Iran. That isn't exactly new. Iran continued to fight back, launching missiles, launching drones, both at Israel, at US military targets, and at Gulf allies, civilian and military and energy infrastructure. That is what the fighting kind of theater, as the military folks say, looked like. What that means is that on both sides, the desire to stay in it is still there. On the Iranian side, even though they are taking a beating, it shows there is regime cohesion to some degree, and there is the ability to keep fighting. The death toll. The death toll, we knew this would happen, but it is. It's still rising. Most of the deaths, the vast majority of the deaths, are in Iran. That is what happens when you have massive aerial bombardment. There was the case where an 11-year-old Kuwaiti girl was killed by falling shrapnel. That's the kind of death that happens. And remember, every individual loss is a life, like a human life, right? Every number. So I can't talk about that without just getting really sad. And I'm going to let myself be sad. And if you guys swipe away, then fine. But it is the thing about this war and about all wars, we get so stuck up at the top that we forget that down at the bottom, it is people suffering. In Iran, we saw funerals for the girls who were killed on Saturday when their school was struck. Now, was their school struck on purpose? Was it Israel? Was it the US? We don't know. Was it because they were close to an IRGC base? We don't know. But coffins don't lie. And every day that a war continues, we are going to see more innocent people suffering. And as somebody who has done this for a long time, it kills me. It really does. And I wonder, what is it all for? So sorry, but that was just my rant on this. And I just want us not to lose our humanity, because I think there's a lot of betting being done. Like literally, there is a lot of betting being done. People are betting in the oil market, sure. Will the Straits of Hormuz be closed? Trump says maybe we'll escort tankers. But like there's a lot of betting being done about what is going to happen. But then there are people who are actually betting, who are in poly market. It might be you. If it's you, don't let it be you. Who are in there betting on how long this will go on, what will be the first airport to open. You know, it's like, this isn't like what is a royal gonna name their baby. This is an 11-year-old girl killed by falling shrapnel. This is coffins from a girls' school. So do not be an a-hole. Stop betting on the war. That said, everybody is betting on the war. Iran is betting that they can cause enough pain to enough people in the Gulf that the US and Israel will be forced to pull back. And they are also betting that they can force the US and Israel to use up enough of their munitions that they will be forced to let up a little bit. And that will give the Iranian regime time to regroup. The US and Israel, they're making slightly different bets because they're not necessarily playing the same game. Whatever you think, and they are definitely in lockstep, but that doesn't mean they're hearing the same tune inside their heads. The US is betting that they are going to be able to get this job done quickly enough without boots on the ground and without unacceptable losses, which is the term they use for not many more service people dead, and that the Iranian stockpile will be so reduced they'll no longer be a threat, and that whoever is put in charge will be willing to come to the table and meet them wherever they want to be. They're also betting they can do that without total regime collapse. Right? That's a bet. I would say that Netanyahu is doing the same. Netanyahu is betting that he can take out Hezbollah, he can take out some of the proxies in Iraq. We saw an attack just about 20 minutes ago as I'm recording this on one of the militias in Iraq. Now, who knows who that could have been? Speak about opportunism next. And he's betting that he can accomplish all of his aims before the US say enough is enough. Right? He just wants a defanged Iran. He doesn't particularly care if they come to the table in the same way. He wants no nukes. He wants to get all of his aims accomplished in terms of the proxy surrounding Israel, and he wants to win the election. He wants to look like the guy who defanged Iran before the election. Those are bets. Opportunism. We start to see the players on the board say, okay, they're distracted. I'm going to make my move here. So again, it could be something like an attack on a militia in Iraq. Now, that might be by somebody like Islamic State, who have been resurgent in northern Syria, northern Iraq, because they can. And they see their moment. They can start to make moves. When lots of players who are armed to the teeth start to make moves, the world becomes more dangerous for you and I. Right. That can come politically too, but we're not going to talk about that tonight. So speaking of arms and munitions, I've talked a lot about that. Donald Trump said today when he was, just after he was meeting with the German chancellor, he said that he is calling the U.S. munitions manufacturers to the White House on Friday to talk about how they are going to keep the U.S. armed to the teeth. He said it is possible to keep the good times, the weapons rolling, get everything done that they need. That will be potentially very lucrative, and it is going to be needed for this strategy of bomb them till they say uncle to work, because that's what's required here. It is also what Ukraine is hoping for, because I just want to talk about the law of unintended consequences. The law of unintended consequences is that Ukraine has suffered the heaviest artillery and aerial bombing campaign by Russia in February since 2023. That's 3 years. So Russia has been taking it to them really hard. And Ukraine, you may know this, all along has been saying, look, we have to have air defense missiles. We have to have air defenses. And although they've been building up their own internal defense capacity, they've been really creating this this defense industry in the country almost from nothing, right? Which is going to be a lesson to the rest of NATO probably. They still rely heavily not just on U.S. munitions, but then they rely on European countries buying U.S. munitions. I can't say that word for some reason. So when they rely on that, and there is another big war going on where the U.S. might need an uninterrupted flow of air defense munitions, look, I can say it, that's worrying. So we already know that Ukraine is now thinking, are we going to be able to rely on the weaponry, getting the weaponry we need? We don't know the answer to that. That's one of those things we don't know the answer to. Law of unintended consequences. If they can't, opportunism, who takes advantage of that? I don't want to speculate too much, but this is just how it tends to work. Um, I realize now that I'm probably going to go on for about 20 minutes, and I don't know if any of you will watch this on TikTok, but here we are, and I'm going for it. All right. So, is there a new Ayatollah? Maybe. Ayatollah Khamenei, second of his name. This one is Moshtaba. Please forgive me, Persians, if I'm pronouncing that incorrectly. Iranians, I apologize. He is the second son of the former Ayatollah Khamenei, and it has been reported that he has been named. This is by a few sources. He was considered one of the front runners, but it has not been confirmed by Iranian state media. Now, this whole process has happened not in the way it's supposed to. Now, to be fair, there's only been one Ayatollah named before and, after the revolution. So, and it didn't happen during a major war. That means that the fact that he is the son of the last Ayatollah, which would have probably disqualified him because there's a lot of bad feelings about a monarchy in Iran, despite, Israel and the US and Reza Pahlavi himself trying to push himself as a possible successor. And other people too, to be fair, trying to push him as a possible successor, the son of the Shah, the deposed Shah. Not just deposed because there were a bunch of loonies, deposed because he was corrupt and he had this feared secret police who tortured a bunch of people, tortured a bunch of intellectuals. Again, look it up. Right. So this would be unusual for him to take over. He's never had a major position. He is the son of the former Ayatollah. It would just not be the done thing. However, these are not usual times, unintended consequences. He is in with the Revolutionary Guard, who have taken apparently a strong hand in this, opportunism, and who are making a bet that if they install him, they will have greater control over the country. Now, that, my friends, is a bet that they are making that they will be able to control him, which will mean they can maintain their economic influence, of which they have quite a bit, and that they will be able to keep the regime, which probably means the bet being made that the regime is going to give up is not going to happen. Right. We are covering a lot. So, I am probably going to regret having done a 13-minute TikTok, which 5 of you maybe will watch. But in the vast country that is Iran, Iran borders Azerbaijan, Armenia, Turkey, Turkmenistan, Pakistan, Afghanistan. I've actually been to that border. Iraq, I've been to that border too. Turkey, I've been to that border. Oh, Iraq, I have been to that border as well. I've been to a lot of Iran's borders and I've never got to go inside. Not for lack of trying, my friends. It borders so many countries. And then remember, it's along the Persian Gulf, which we've discussed with the shipping. And it is not a monolith. It is a fractious, multi-ethnic, multi-opinionated, multi-leveled state that has been kept that way. It was that way before and it has been kept that way. And it has been existing with simmering dissent for years. There will be people who want to keep the regime. There has not been an opposite, even though there's been unrest and unhappiness for years, there has not been an opposition that could coalesce to challenge the regime. So if the regime is severely weakened, it is a big bet to make that there will not be an opportunistic grab by people who maybe don't have the best will in the world to seek their own power and influence at the expense of others. And in a country that borders so many, that sits on the shipping lanes that control how most of us get our energy, that is a huge gamble that we won't see chaos that comes home to roost, chaos that engulfs the rest of us. Whether we're far away, we might not feel it with missiles. It doesn't have to be a missile that lands, right? See Ukraine. It might just be that everything is so consumed over there that nobody is paying attention to this over here. Or that chaos does drive oil and gas through the roof. All of those things can happen because of a bet that goes wrong, because of opportunism that takes hold whenever people see weakness and uncertainty, and because of the unintended consequences that, hubris can bring. We're all capable of it. And I think about those little coffins, and I think about that 11-year-old girl, and what makes me really sad and what I want us all to remember is that at the end of the day, that is what we would see more of. So, sorry, this was my very long rant tonight. I'm happy to dig into this more. I think I should do a TikTok or a YouTube or a Q&A, ask me anything. I don't want to see more people suffer in any country. And that's why I don't think any of you do, or you wouldn't be here if any of you are still here. I hope you get some sleep tonight. We have to do better. And if any of you are betting on war, please stop. Bet on peace. Bet on peace. Bet on how we can make it happen. Bet on how we can support those who are trying to make it happen. It is easy to laugh at the Omani mediator as he tries to tell people there are still off ramps. There are always off ramps. There are always off ramps from war. So there are always off ramps. There are always ways to keep things from falling apart. And it is always better to keep something from falling apart than to try and put it back together. So sweet dreams. Bet on peace.